We're just 2 weeks out from the beginning of the second Trump presidency, and already there's some backpedaling going on away from some of his campaign promises. If you'll remember, during his campaign, which I think lasted like 3 years, Donald promised over and over and over again sweeping universal tariffs of between 10 to 20% on all imports to the United States, touting it as a corner of his economic policy, reminding us yet again that he knows absolutely nothing about economic policy. Unsurprisingly, this promise was met with widespread criticism from economic experts across the spectrum, who warned that such tariffs would dramatically raise the cost of food and other essential goods for American consumers. This, of course, directly contradicts Donald's campaign pledge to reduce inflation on day one. Remember, day one is going to be very, very busy for the Trump administration. This kind of ill-informed and ill-advised policy decision mirrors what happened during the first Trump administration, when tariffs of up to $360 billion were placed on Chinese goods, which disrupted global trade and led to economic tensions between the two countries. According to a report from the Washington Post earlier today, Donald aides are now rethinking the sweeping approach to tariffs only 2 weeks before the inauguration. Instead of universal tariffs, again, which would be disastrous to the American economy and the American consumer, instead of the tariffs Donald has been championing, they're exploring a more targeted sector-specific application of tariffs that would focus on industries deemed critical to national security, like defense. So that would be steel and aluminum, medical supplies, things like syringes and vials, and energy, the energy sector, like batteries and rare earth minerals. And remember, rare earth minerals, that's probably why Donald wants to buy Greenland. Anyway, the scaled back proposal reflects internal concerns within the incoming and Trump administration that universal tariffs could lead to, quote, price shocks, unquote. Yes, no kidding, which would exacerbate inflation and cause significant harm to consumers, ultimately leading to political backlash. Now, before we dive into Donald's completely mature and measured response to this controversy, just a quick reminder, please, if you could like and share this video, and also subscribe to our channel. After you subscribe, hit the bell. That way you'll get notified every time a new video drops. Plus, if you're listening to us on a podcast, please follow the show and also give us a 5-star rating, because it really does help other people find us. Okay, on to the tailspin. Naturally, since Donald is being contradicted by people who might actually understand the consequences of the tariffs he's proposed, he decided to react with the same kind of unhinged ranting he favors when anybody either contradicts him or points out that he's wrong. You'd think he would be used to that by now. Directly after the story in the Washington Post broke, Donald took to his failing social media company to write the following, quote, "The story in the Washington Post, quoting so-called anonymous sources which don't exist, incorrectly states that my tariff policy will be pared back. That is wrong. The Washington Post knows it's wrong. It's just another example of fake news," unquote. Hey, Jeff Bezos, I know you're listening. Just wondering how you're feeling about giving all of that money to Donald's inauguration. Anyway, this rambling came just hours after he had already posted this, quote, "Why would they want to sell U.S. steel now when tariffs will make it a much more profitable and valuable company? Wouldn't it be nice to have U.S. Steel, once the greatest company in the world, lead the charge toward greatness again? It can all happen very quickly," unquote. Just for reference, President Biden has interfered with the Nippon Steel Company from Japan's ability to buy U.S. steel, scuppering that deal. So Donald was just weighing in with his valuable expertise. And then a week ago, because tariffs clearly have been on his mind, Donald wrote this, quote, The tariffs and our tariffs alone created this vast wealth for our country. Then we switched over to income tax. We were never so wealthy as during this period. Tariffs will pay off our debt and make America wealthy again, unquote. I guess a new baseball cap is going to be dropping any day now. Listen, despite Donald's temper tantrums and revealing, as he always does, his utter ignorance, the market is actually quite pleased with the backpedaling from some of his closest associates. The S&P rose on the news of backing off the universal tariffs, and you can tell that it is related to that because of who benefited. We have top gainers were those in the energy sectors and any sector related to infrastructure, like steel and copper, for example. Ford Motor Company and General Motors also rallied because they hope that the cars produced in Mexico and Canada might dodge this direct hit from Donald's tariffs. As soon as Donald decided to come out against the modified approach, however, the automakers lost their early gains. So, this is what happens when you put somebody who doesn't know anything about anything in the position of power, because even though he's completely wrong, Donald's fits have unsettling and sometimes far-reaching consequences. Take a look at this clip.
And now to some breaking news. And our neighbors to the north. Developments out of Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau set to make an announcement about his political future later this hour, according to Canadian media. In recent months, he has had to contend with top allies resigning, public support cratering, and the looming threat of Trump tariffs. According to Canada's CTV, Trudeau will tell staffers before that public announcement that he doesn't see a path forward for continued leadership.
It is now official. Justin Trudeau has resigned his prime ministership. And I think it's important to remember that I guess it was in the wake of the election, Trudeau went down to Mar-a-Lago to discuss tariffs with Donald, or at least he thought he was going to be discussing tariffs with Donald, because Donald is an almost 80-year-old man who was in the Oval Office for 4 years and speaks often about his economic policies. So Trudeau may mistakenly assume that Donald knew what a tariff was. Instead of discussing the policies and the implications of them, Trudeau actually had to explain what a tariff was to Donald. Clearly, it didn't work. So Trudeau is just yet another casualty of Donald's ignorance and woefully mistaken policies. So we have two things potentially going on here. Either the adults in the room, such as they are trying to exert some influence over the policies of the Trump administration, and the market and therefore the world is responding positively. Or we have Donald continuing to peddle his own ideas for what should happen and insisting upon universal tariffs, which we know will be disastrous for the American and therefore the global economy. And it's having an impact on other countries, and the chaos continues. Now, to anybody who voted for Donald based on his insistence upon universal tariffs, who then Googled what a tariff was the day after the election, thanks a lot.